another episode of the Sly Hooper Podcast. For today's episode, we have Evan Dammarell of Forbes Sports. He's a Cavs reporter for Forbes Sports. One of my longtime buddies, started out in our days at #basketball.com and kind of just stayed in touch ever since and became really good friends, and he has been a frequent guest on my past podcast. Rest in peace to the Second Unit podcast, and rest in peace to the Open Gym podcast. He was on a guest of both of those, and we share a lot of things in common, especially our love for all things nerd, cartoon, anime, video game, that type of sort. So he came on to the pod as the first guest of the Sly Hooper Podcast, and we talked about a range of things as friends would do during a pandemic when nothing else is going on. We talked about where we were leading up to the NBA suspension, or more specifically, what Evan was doing on the day the NBA got suspended. And then we talked about topics from this season or storylines that we were following that we were disappointed we didn't get to see through because of the suspension. We talk about the Last Dance documentary and how he views it through the lens of being a Cavs fan. And then, of course, my favorite personal part of the podcast, and one that I was waiting for, we gave our top 5 favorite anime. And not the best, we went with top 5 favorite. And you could go with favorite list, you could go in a bunch of different routes. And I wanted to go one way, and then I went the other. Like, do I go with more of the stuff that shaped me into the person that I am now? Or do I go with the more modern stuff? Because I think there is this thing that we do whenever something becomes modernized, or a certain genre or topic becomes modernized or it evolves. There is this sort of hipsterish backlash or gateway thing that we do, where we're like, how can this new show already be one of your favorites? You must not watch real shows, or you must not know real sports, or you must not know real comic books, or you must not know real stories if you think that one's good. And I hate that stuff. It's just, stuff evolves, stuff gets better, and sometimes when you get somebody who is adept at being creative and making something, if you get better modern technology and modern methods to create your work, sometimes stuff will turn out better. And so I meant with my list, I went with a little mix of both, and you can't go wrong either way. This is a favorites list. It's a whole personal thing. It just depends on the method you used. And it was a very fun conversation. So anyway, here's Evan Dammarell, Cavs reporter, Forbes Sports. All right, so first question I wanted to ask you is, before we get started today, what have you spent more time doing as we are hunkered down in our homes? Play Animal Crossing or rewatch Simpsons episodes?
That's actually a tough... Well, the answer is Animal Crossing, but you and I were talking about this before we came on. Like, I'm fortunate enough to be able to keep my work going and, just maintain benefits and all that stuff. So, like, that keeps me busy in the day-to-day. But usually it's just Animal Crossing. And then I bought the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think, last week. And I'm really enjoying it so far. It sticks to the bones of the original story with some twists. There's some things I disagree about it. I'm sure if you've played it, just making Sephiroth such a central character early in the game didn't make much sense. But
I did not have a PlayStation growing up, so I missed out on all the Final Fantasy. Well, I didn't start playing Final Fantasy games until... I think it was, what was the first online one? What was it, Final Fantasy 7? No, not 7. You just said 7. I think it was Final Fantasy 11.
I think it is
or something.
11, and then 14 is the latest online one. And I have play 14, but it's just, I don't know. I'm spoiled, and I played WoW as my MMO of choice first, and I'm like, this is the gold standard for me. So Final Fantasy 11 was my first MMO choice, but then everybody moved to WoW, so then I moved to WoW, and that was my main MMO of choice when I was
well, later on through high school and college, and
Yeah.
then but I was like, okay, I can't play this anymore because it's one of those you start it's morning and then you look out your window and it's nighttime
Yeah.
type of
You
thing.
can sync it's a time sink game for sure, but it's just the little rewards you get in WoW just make it so much worth it. But yeah, no, I was super excited, speaking of WoW, when they released the vanilla servers after Blizzard kind of pulled that BS and put the kibosh on the fans making the vanilla servers. Like, I was excited about that. And then the whole, God, that feels so long ago when Blizzard was in hot water for the China tweet controversy. And that's when I uninstalled WoW and I canceled my subscription, and I just haven't really looked back, and I just don't really have any desire to play again. But maybe the new
Yeah,
expansion supposed to come out this fall will sink the hooks back in me and drag me back in, because I think that's how it's been the last 2 or 3 expansions, where I'm like, I don't really care anymore. Activision's kind of ruined this game, and then I'm like, oh, that looks kind of fun. And then I pay $60, play it for like a month straight, and then I'm like, I think I'm good. So
yeah. I stopped after Cataclysm came out.
ah,
So I got my character to level 85. I think that was the new level cap when that expansion came out. And then
yes,
I kind of just flamed out after that.
yeah.
What was your wait, real quickly, what was your class? What did you play in WoW?
Before this first expansion, I played a dwarf paladin, and then I switched over to blood elf paladin because they looked like anime characters, and I was 13 at the time, so I thought that was the coolest thing. And then I never looked back. And then I've always just been a horde main ever since. Like, I had when I last played, I had
The only correct answer.
yeah, the blood. I still had that same blood elf paladin that I was using, but it's funny you mentioned the level cap. They lowered it back down to 60, and people are starting to
Oh,
wonder.
did
Yeah,
they?
people. There's leaks that are coming out that may or may not be real or not. I haven't looked too far into it, but with the new expansion, it may be a console game going forward, which would be super broken if you could map abilities to button presses instead of keystrokes instead. But I mean, I don't know. You can install so many mods on WoW these days that it's not really a game anymore. It's like the press of 3 or 4 buttons. I don't know.
Right. I was a shaman. I was an enhancement
There
shaman.
you go.
A Tauren enhancement
There
shaman.
you go.
Because I always played a lot of warriors growing up. Because I would rather I was the person in the party who would either be the tank or would just beat stuff up whenever we play other
Mhm.
other games. And so my friends were like, "Oh, why did you try something different?" And I tried shaman. It was fun. I
Yeah.
wish I still had to just went with my usual instinct of warrior.
Yeah.
But enhancement shaman was interesting. But enough about the WoW stuff. I wanted to go back to I wanted to go back to what you were saying about being fortunate and
Yeah.
during this time and stuff. And we were just talking before we got on, like, I do, considering the circumstances, and obviously don't want these circumstances to happen in any way ever, but I mean, considering the circumstances, yeah, I do feel pretty lucky
Yeah.
that I still have my job. My family is still relatively is my family's relatively safe. I talk to them
Good.
all the time, especially now that we're kind of, it's weird, I mentioned it in the first episode of my podcast, but I live 20 minutes down the freeway here in Sacramento. I live 20 minutes down the freeway from my parents' house, and then my grandparents live 10 minutes up the street from my apartment.
Oh.
And it's weird that I can't, in good conscience, I can't go visit them
Yeah.
because I don't want to take any chances. And it's weird because they live such in close proximity. I mean, just everything these last few months have just been weird. I don't know how it
Yeah.
is over there in Ohio, but in California, everything except for essential businesses pretty much is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Streets are more relatively empty than usual when you're driving about to go get groceries or whatever. That's about the only thing you can do right now. It's just all weird over there. How is it over there in Ohio? What were any shelter in place orders or anything like that? I haven't really kept up too much over
Um,
there.
it's more or less the state has been. Mike DeWine's been surprisingly, like, I don't agree with a lot of his politics, but he's been surprisingly been proactive throughout this entire process.
That's good.
Shut down schools relatively quickly. I think the big thing was, though, since Ohio State's such a major institution, just like across the country, when they closed their doors and told students, like, listen, you have to find somebody to stay with or go home, like, and classes are online going forward. And then, like, every major institution, like my school, Akron, they shut down soon after. And then my brother is a student at the University of Toledo. They shut down almost immediately after. Like, once that started happening, I think the reality of the situation really started to kick in. And then, no, DeWine's been super proactive throughout this entire process, which is super good. Yeah, all restaurants, and essentially, if you're not a non-essential worker, essential workers at this point are just people who work at grocery stores and like cashiers, and obviously people who work at hospitals and everything. But like that's going well. But yeah, no, it's like super surreal. Like gas is dirt cheap. It costs me about, it's like $1.07 a
Yeah,
gallon.
I went to fill up yesterday and it was 189 a gallon or
Oh,
whatever.
that's
I put it up on
expensive
my
over here.
Instagram.
Say like it was $1.07 when I last topped off my tank.
Wow. Oh my god.
Yeah, maybe California, but
Yeah.
I don't
Cuz
know.
I put it on my Instagram story. I was just like, "What in the 1998 is this?" Cuz I hadn't seen gas prices like that since I was like 9 years old. It's pretty it's it's pretty surreal.
It is.
If is there anything you've learned, I guess, about yourself, not to give like an exit interview
Yeah.
type of question or anything like, but is there any is there anything you've learned, I guess, about yourself while you've been hunkered down? Anything anything new you're trying? Anything to kind of pass the time?
This is gonna make me sound like a functioning alcoholic, but my parents for Christmas, because they didn't know what to get me, they got me a bunch of like quote unquote barkeep and bartender stuff, and like books as well to like actually make like your own spirits from by hand and from scratch. And like I started following it. I'm like, oh, this isn't too bad. Now I'm like getting savvy with that. And so I don't know. There's a guy on YouTube named Cocktail Chemistry who like breaks down like the history of certain drinks and like has his own spins and unique twists, and he'll do drinks from shows and stuff too. It's funny you mentioned The Simpsons. Like he tried to make a flaming mo and he couldn't figure really how to do it, but because you can't add cough syrup to a drink. But no, I've been doing a lot of that, doing a lot of cooking, and I've learned to love how to run. I used to hate running a lot, but at
Mhm.
least in Ohio, they encourage, well, it's like a mandatory half hour. I call it my mandatory half hour daily excursion, but I usually go over that when I run. But it's nice to get out and get fresh air just after being cooped up inside the same place with my stale old farts all day. So it's good to go for a run for a little bit, and I've learned to learn how to love it. And people like make fun of me, like, "Oh, I hate running." I'm like, no, it literally makes me feel so much better just to be outside and have fresh air, and like even if it's
Yeah.
cold and gross out, because that's the other thing. It was snowing last week, so that's always fun. But yeah, no, I don't mind it too much, and I've learned to love it, which is something weird to say because if you talked to me maybe even 6 months ago, running was a chore for me, and I absolutely hated it when I had to work out. So yeah, no, that's where I've been at. What about you, pal?
Um, Pretty much just trying to keep myself occupied. Luckily, I built my new gaming computer before.
Oh,
I built it in early March, the first week of March, I think. And it was, yeah, it was the first week of March. I built it just in time before like Amazon started changing their Prime service policies to
mm-hmm.
like cater more to essential needs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I built that just in time because I think I told you that I was trying to save up for a new rig for a while, and I bought a bunch of games on Steam in preparation for my new
There you go.
transition into quote unquote the PC master race with my other buddies because they all have great rigs, and I built a computer 10 years ago and it kind of kicked the bucket like 2 or 3 months ago after basically staying in working function for 9 years, surprisingly. Um, and so I saved up a bit for this one, and it's gonna be my forever computer. I won't go into how much I spent on it, but as you can imagine, building a computer is not cheap, and I wanted it to be a forever PC.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that, so I've kind of been preoccupied with that, catching up on games and all that stuff.
What have you been catching up on?
I've it's been a mix. So I've been playing The Witcher
Ooh,
3
ooh,
finally.
ooh, such a good game.
It is such a, you know how good of a game it is. On my last computer, it had none of the even the minimum requirements to run Witcher 3, and I still installed it and I still played 60
I
hours
remember you
with
telling me
just
this.
completely crappy graphics. And it was so bad that it did the thing where you could hear the audio of the dialogue, right? You could hear the audio of the dialogue first, and then 10 seconds later the character starts mouthing out the dialogue that was said 10 seconds before.
That's great.
That's how bad it was. And then eventually I was like, I can't do myself a disservice. I gotta wait until I build my computer. And that was like 3 years ago. And so I've been playing that now, and it's fantastic.
Such a good game.
Grand Theft Auto 5 too.
Yeah.
And now that was that an end?
I'm not a GTA guy, to be fair. Like,
I'm not either. I didn't grow up playing. That was like the only game
I played,
my dad wouldn't let me and my brother play growing up.
Same. I lied to my mom so she'd buy me San Andreas, and then after I played it for a little bit, like after like I don't know, I wasn't one of those kids. Like I don't think my parents worried about me being like that child who was influenced by video games. So my dad wasn't happy, but like I was just like, my brother plays so much GTA 5 online though, it's absurd. But like,
I mean, it's cool. It's well, obviously it's the newer GTA, so it's modernized, and you could drive around LA and stuff like that. Like just doing the side stuff. It's one of those games where even just doing the side stuff is fun. I didn't really play any of the Grand Theft Autos growing up. Not San Andreas, Vice City, or any of that. The first of those games that I actually owned was Saints Row. That was when I finally, graduated from high school.
I played Saints Row the Third with my buddy, and like that's a parody of GTA, and like I had a blast playing
That's such a ridiculous game.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like GTA takes itself so seriously, and after I played Saints Row, I'm like, man, like I get it. Like it's probably has a great story and it prints money, but it's just I cannot get into them. Like I like exploring and I like doing whatever, and I like the sandbox environment, but then I just kind of get bored with it after a while, and I'm like, all right,
yeah,
like
when you play Saints Row first and then you play GTA, you're just like, yeah, I get that it's like the quote unquote exquisite storytelling that GTA has and stuff like that, but Saints Row, like they really lean into you could just blow shit up and just do crazy stuff, and that's also something I really appreciate.
Same.
So going back to the Simpsons, and I swear we will talk about basketball at some point. But I think I told you I've been rewatching The Simpsons on
brother.
Disney Plus. Shout out to mom and dad who are probably listening. They have that free Disney Plus for a year, and so I hopped on and I started watching it, and I'm at the I guess I'm at what's considered the golden age now. The weird thing about The Simpsons was I was into it in middle school. Like I was into Simpsons hard in middle school. Like I had a poster of all the characters hanging up in my room and stuff like that, and then I stopped watching it right around high school or whatever. But I didn't realize going back and watching like the earlier I saw a lot of early Simpsons episodes, like seasons 1 through 4, probably 1 through 5, but I'm on season 3 now, and I guess I'm at what's considered the golden age. I think Zach Lowe and Howard Beck had a podcast talking about TV, because like everybody else, we're bored as hell right now, and Zach Lowe brought up The Simpsons, and he was saying that the golden age of The Simpsons was from 91 to 95. So I wanted to ask you, what is the golden age era? Is that the right, I guess, timeline for what you consider the golden age for The Simpsons? What is your favorite section of The Simpsons? Because I'm on season 3 now, so that came out in 91, so I think I'm getting started with the golden era, quote unquote.
No, season 3 is really, really good. I'm like going through the episode list now. Homer,
it's hilarious.
Homer Defined is such a good episode.
I saw that one yesterday, and I was laughing so hard, man. Like I saw that after the Jordan doc, after the the two newest Jordan episodes or Last Dance episodes, and I was laughing so hard. It was hilarious.
See, that's the craziest thing. I'm like, season 3 has so many good episodes. Like every episode's a hit. Season 4 is really good, and I think that's my favorite season because like I love Camp Krusty, I love Homer the Heretic, I love Marge Gets a Job. I like Mr. Plow's one of my favorite episodes ever. Homer's Triple Bypass, Marge versus the Monorail, which was written by Conan O'Brien. For those of you listening at home,
Ooh.
really good episode. Yeah, Conan used to be a writer on the Simpsons. Had such a good writing staff, but yeah, no, you're definitely in the golden era, and there's just so many like random quotes and one-liners I can pull from that. Like,
Because you could tell after like season 2, you could tell watching the first 2 seasons, you're like, I could see why this stayed.
yeah,
And then like after season 3, you're like, okay, they got the budget now, and like the animation's better.
Yeah.
The voice acting sounds way better. Like this audio quality of the voice acting sounds way better. The writing's obviously a lot better because they had time under their feet doing it. And so I've like the first like 8 episodes, I think I'm halfway through season 3, but I have laughed every time, like laughed my ass off every time.
no, it's you're in the good range, and like there's some solid episodes after like 95 and leading towards like the turn of the millennium and everything, and like there's a bit of a drop off, but apparently it's a lot like SpongeBob for some reason. Apparently SpongeBob's had resurgence as well, where they've just kind of gone back to like what worked for the show instead of just trying to be
Thank
like
God.
what the Simpsons like. I know they tried to do for a while. They tried to follow the South Park model where they like tried to follow topical news of what was going on at the time. But the problem is, I don't think the Simpsons produces their episodes like South Park. Where have you ever watched that documentary about how they produce an episode of South Park? It's absolutely insane.
No, I've heard about it, but I haven't
I'll
watched
link it
it
to
in
you
full.
sometime. It's like
Yeah.
40 minutes, but it's like they storyboard the idea like on a Saturday or a Sunday, and they're observing what's topical in the news that day, and they quite literally no, maybe on a Thursday or a Friday, and then they storyboard it and like work through it and animate it, and they have it submitted to Comedy Central by Tuesday night so it can air Wednesday night. And then like there's plenty of times like because the episode they focused on was when President Obama I think beat Cheney. They had 2 separate episodes animated and ready to go based on who won the election because the election was announced that night. And so like that's absolutely insane. But like the Simpsons tried to copy that model for a while, and instead they just find like subtle comedy and sharp humor and like just jokes that maybe like have pop culture references or just culture references in general, but like they stay condensed within their own universe, which works really well. Which like I guess SpongeBob kind of did the same thing because like SpongeBob had a falling off as well, and I have an axe to grind, and we don't have enough time for me to talk about my feelings about Nickelodeon and SpongeBob. But yeah, no, you're in the golden era of The Simpsons, but
Sure.
no, I have a lot of thoughts on the new movie that's coming out, but I don't know. It's just I'm gonna go on a tangent. So when Stephen Hillen,
I love cartoon tangents because I agree with you. I think I haven't watched SpongeBob recently, but like I remember when they started going to like the new art style and the new animation and stuff like that, and the episodes just they were trash. Like they just didn't hit.
No, they didn't hit the same exactly. And like I don't know, my friend and I were sending clips back and forth the other day just from the episode where Sandy's in hibernation because I called him Dirty Dan and he called me Pinhead Larry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, there's so many like off lines in that show where like
who you calling Pinhead?
Who you calling Pinhead? Or like they didn't use cannons in the Old West, and like they didn't use station wagons either. And he shot Patrick with a snow station wagon. He's just like, nice paneling. I'm like, that line kills me for some reason. But my beef with SpongeBob. So when Stephen Hillenburg was still alive, he's the creator of the show.
Yeah.
He was adamant with Nickelodeon that he didn't want to do a bunch of spin-off series. He didn't want to like like obviously there's SpongeBob toys and there's like food and candy or whatever, and like there's plenty of YouTube videos out there like document all this stuff that you can watch if you really want to get in the nitty-gritty of it. Like that's fine. Like that's part of the Nickelodeon experience, especially when your show is the face of a children's cartoon network. Like that's where you're at. But he basically told Nickelodeon he doesn't want to do a bunch of derivative spin-off series and everything, and like just kind of keep it within house, and then when he says the show is done, it's done. The moment he passed away, have you seen the trailers for the new movie about like I don't know, it's like a 3D animated movie, but like
Yeah, it does not.
it
It does not appeal to me, to say the least.
so there is a thing within that where they show a younger SpongeBob meeting Gary and Patrick and Squidward called Camp Coral. That is actually an introductory. That's a launching point to the fact that they are starting a Nick Jr. series called Camp Coral about a younger SpongeBob, and it's more or less they're desecrating the grave of Steven Hillenburg and the fact that he didn't want to do spinoffs, and the moment he died, since Nickelodeon owns the intellectual property rights to the character in the show, they respected his wishes while he was alive, and the moment he died, they're like, all right, let's get cracking. And they have like a bunch of spin-off series planned for the show, and I'm like, fuck you guys. So in retaliation and in protest, I will not watch the movie in theaters, and I may watch it through less than legal means just to make sure Nickelodeon doesn't get any money out of me. And at that point, Disney probably will own them, so it'll just be Disney, and it'll end up on Disney Plus at some point. So
I'm gonna have to ask my little brother if he feels the same way, because he was a big SpongeBob guy growing up. Do you want to know a little fun fact before I start asking you some basketball questions about Steven Steven Hellenberg? So
absolutely.
for the listeners who don't know my backstory, I went to Humboldt State University. And for those of you who do not live in California and don't know what the hell I just said, Humboldt State University it's a small little college up in the rural areas of Humboldt County in Northern California, where all the redwood trees are. It's part of the Emerald Triangle of Humboldt County, Trinity County, and Mendocino County, and we're called the Emerald Triangle because it's known
Yeah.
for a lot of weed up there. And so Stephen Hillenberg, actually, he went to Humboldt State University, and
Oh.
he came up with the idea of the Krusty Krab. Now, this is legend. I've tried to confirm it. I still don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, I'd imagine it's true, but or that this because it's a long time story, but the Krusty Krab, the idea of the Krusty Krab in SpongeBob originated from Star's Hamburgers in Arcata, California, which is where Humboldt State is located. Arcata is a little
Huh.
small college town in Humboldt County. I lived there for a few years, but there is there is a connection between my school, my area, and the creator of the creator of SpongeBob. So just thought I'd throw in a little factoid
Huh.
for you, since you said you were a big SpongeBob guy. Um,
That is
so
neat.
the NBA season. Now that we can move on to some basketball before we get to more nerd stuff later on in the show.
There we go.
So the NBA season, it's been over a month since
I
the
know.
NBA season has been suspended, and honestly, another way I describe this whole Corona pandemic and everything to people that I know and talk to, family and friends, I always say, like, this is the slowest and somehow the fastest time has gone by at the same time
Yeah.
with all of this. Um, and it's just seems like it's been forever since it happened, even though it's been a month, or it's been basically over 6 weeks now. Let's start with this. So where were you when where were you the night the NBA got suspended? Because it was leading up to the Mavericks and the Nuggets were playing on ESPN first. I think the Thunder and the Jazz were going to play at 6. They were going to play at 6 p.m. Pacific time, which was my time. And then
Mm-hmm.
where were you as you're monitoring Twitter and seeing all the developments happening before the Jazz and the Thunder game, and how everybody was basically standing around waiting to see if it was going to be canceled or not, and then all the stuff that ultimately led to Rudy Gobert's positive test, and then the NBA being suspended.
I think not. No, not. I think I know. I just finished up recording my show Locked On Cavs because the Cavs played the night before and lost to the Bulls 108 to 103. And for people to think I'm like Rain Man, I have the box score pulled up. That's why I said that number. So I was just kind of going through things, and then I said, Chris, we have to scrap what we're talking about. He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, Yeah, so I think we tackled that, and then I was just kind of in communication with the Cavs organization because they just had played the Jazz, and thankfully, again, like speaking from a position of privilege here, I didn't go to the Cavs Jazz game that night. So
Oh yeah, that yeah.
yeah, so like I had that fear for a second, but I was around players and members of the coaching staff and organization after that, so I was largely working from home at that point to begin with, but like that's when I said, all right, I'm shutting myself down for 2 weeks. So I didn't have any human interaction after that point, which absolutely sucked as much as like phone calls and FaceTime calls help. But that was tough. But like, I was just kind of monitoring the situation, just kind of like trying to get answers from the league, trying to get answers from the Cavs, trying to get answers from like what's going on, and just like monitoring just like a lot of the situations going on. And then it's just a lot to take in. I think I was up to like 3:34 that night, and then had to be up for work at like 7 a.m. the next day. But like I filed a story about how this was going to impact the Cavs financially, because I think a lot of people weren't aware at the time of in the CBA that they have that um, like the pandemic clause and they're essentially in their contracts. I mean, there's a French term for it that I'm not going to butcher right now, but it's just like I was like researching that and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And then like I'm talking to players, I'm talking to agents, and like just kind of figuring out what's going on and like trying to monitor the situation. And the fact that from what I remember, I know the Thunder game was called almost immediately, but I feel like some NBA teams were still trying to play, and then
Yep.
a lot of pushback from that. And it was just like a weird and crazy time. And then I remember at first the NBA didn't know what they were going to do, and I was just like, okay, so are the Cavs playing tomorrow? And then I got word from the organization at like 2 a.m. saying like, no, we told everyone just to stay home, and there is no definitive plan. Cause I think they're going to play in Charlotte the following day. The Cavs were, and they said there's no definitive plan to really what's going to happen next, and we don't really know what to go from here. And that's still the answer. Like people ask me every now and then, like, when do you think basketball is going to be back? Have you heard anything? And I'm like, my best guess is mid to late summer, and that's just me. Like that's not sourced or vetted or anything. That's just me kind of reading the tea leaves. But like, there's no one
Yeah.
knows what's gonna happen, and like the situation is so fluid and so chaotic that yeah, it's just and it's so hard to wrap around that. Like you said, it's been the fastest. Oh, it's been over a month. It's been about 5 weeks, I think.
Yeah, March 11th was when the season got suspended.
So that would be a month and 16 days. So at the time we're recording this, so like it's been a while. It's definitely been a while since like we've seen actual basketball, and like I don't know if there's really an end in sight, because I was talking to my mom and dad about this the other day. I said like I just don't think anyone's really properly prepared for a pandemic to just shut down life as we know it, and I don't really know where we go from here, but it's gonna be weird, and there's definitely a lot I miss. I was super frustrated with the Cavs by the time this whole shutdown happened. So like having been a month removed from the entire situation, like I definitely do miss hoops and just the Cavs in general.
I was gonna say, you want to talk about frustration. I miss the just pure, unrefined and uncut anger and frustration that comes from Sixers Twitter. Like
Mm-hmm.
somehow I miss that. Like I'm just like, oh, nobody's there's no game today. There's no um there's no fans wanting to trade Ben Simmons because he didn't look at the rim when he was at the 3-point line for the 15th time in the game. There's no you sending me the same but different writtenly different version of a Ben Simmons joke. Like I miss all of that. Like
Do you miss Tristan Thompson making more 3 pointers than him in his career? Just gonna remind you.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't know that. I didn't know he had more career 3-pointers made than Ben Simmons. That is news to me. You know?
Mm-hmm.
No, but in all seriousness, like this has made me like miss even the little stuff, like just the I guess the I've been trying to like whenever I watch games, I've been trying to be on Twitter and Twitter less. So like because I feel like I haven't because
Yeah.
sometimes you feel like you're not paying attention or you miss something or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's what I've
But
been trying to do during the last dance is like I try to
yeah,
not have it spoiled for me, and I try to keep my phone away and my computer away just so I can zero in on it and enjoy it.
yeah, and now it's like now like you said, now that a packed sporting week nowadays is considered of NFL draft that has multiple Zoom meetings and a documentary that comes out weekly, then I guess I'll take the live reacting to stuff with people on Twitter as I could get, because it's kind of just reminds me of something that was once normal, I guess, and I'm just trying to seek anything that's normal at this point, considering how much everything's just changed. But I miss I miss a lot of the NBA. I can't wait for it to come back, also because like I don't want to see any more. Man, people forget Andre Miller was just nasty, and it's just like a 2-minute clip of like his best plays, and it's like, oh my god, we're doing Andre Miller highlights. We're doing what are we gonna do, Linus Kleza next, or Edward? Like, what forgotten bench player are we gonna say, oh, we forgot this guy was nasty? Like, we're just bored out of our minds, and I just want basketball to come back, obviously in safe circumstances. Got to keep perspective here. Yeah. But I mean, it's just there were so many good storylines this year. It's weird to look at the season now, as considering that it's not even over. We don't even know what the hell is going to happen. But like this season, if you like just take a breath for a second and just look at it, it's one of those, basketball wise, there were storylines everywhere. Like there were so many good things about the NBA this season, but just off the court, there was just so much BS that like, oh yeah, I just couldn't. Like, the season starts off with the geopolitical crisis, with Daryl Morey's tweets. David Stern passes away. We lose two pillars of the league that we love so much, and David Stern, and then tragically Kobe Bryant too. And then the season gets suspended, and now we're just sitting here waiting for, I guess, what are the next steps. And the crazy thing is, we don't know, and the unknown is scary, and it's really bizarre. So before we did this podcast, I asked you to come up with a few topics of.
I'm not trolling you with these either, so that's a plus on my part.
Oh, you're not trolling me on any of these?
No, not one of them is like Tristan Thompson making more 3-pointers than Ben Simmons. Like it is known, so we don't have to dive too far into it.
But so we'll go with, well, depending on how, because I do want to get to our another ranking list of ours later, but we'll go with 2 topics. So okay. we'll each alternate. I know I said let's do 3, but for time's sake, we'll alternate. We'll choose 2 each. So since you are the guest on my podcast, which by the way, you have been, I think, the first guest on the other 2 previous versions of my podcast. Rest in peace to those podcasts who are off in the universe, in the shadow realm with all the other failed started podcasts. But you are the first guest on this new podcast, so you have the honors, Evan. What is a topic or storyline that you were following this NBA season, and because it's suspended, you're just like, damn, like I really wanted to see how that played out?
Well, here's a broader one. That kind of hits closer to home for me, is just how exciting this rookie class was with Zion. You have Ja, you have Brandon Clark, Kevin Porter Jr. is, a stud, and I know you're high on him. And then like, there's also a lot of lukewarm picks as well. And being a guy who comes to the Cavs, like Darius Garland is one of those lukewarm picks, and it's just it's a bummer, especially for teams that are rebuilding like Cleveland, that times like this is paramount for the development of your young core to help you build towards a possible playoff team, and to have it come to a screeching halt again, especially like Cleveland, where their coach realizes he doesn't like coaching basketball anymore 50 plus games into the year, and JB Bickerstaff is just starting to like figure things out. Like, to have that come to a screeching halt is such a bummer. And boy, do I miss like the team building aspect and like getting hyped up for the draft. Like I if you check my pulse when it came to the draft, like it would be flatlining, because like I'm just gonna read whatever people who are more acquainted with the stuff say, and you have to base it on tape and workouts. That's what a lot of teams are doing. Like that's what the NFL did, and like that's just where I'm at. Like I miss the excitement about the future of the NBA, and then obviously there's more to it now. Like Giannis as well as like the future of the NBA, future face of the NBA. Like that's exciting, and just like I miss the excitement factor, and I miss the potential for how the NBA was building like a firm foothold on just dominating the market, because there's such a our generation and people younger than us like are becoming bigger and bigger basketball fans that like they're gonna start hopefully giving the NFL a run for their money on being the most popular league in this in North America. And it's just it just sucks. Like I miss watching these young exciting players like grow and develop and maybe trying to figure out and guess what kind of player they're gonna be.
The Grizzlies, you still write about the Grizzlies for Hoops Habit, right?
Correct.
So the Grizzlies and my topic kind of intersects with your topic. And when we're talking about young players and developing players, the battle for the 8th seed, the Memphis Grizzlies, or in the Western Conference, the battle for the 8th seed in the Western Conference, which is currently being held by the Memphis Grizzlies, they pulled off one of the more impressive one-year turnarounds that I can remember, to go from an era of grit and grind, and then you trade Marc Gasol last year to the Raptors, you're signaling you want to rebuild. You still keep Mike Conley, even though he was injured for a lot of last year.
Mm-hmm.
You trade Marc Gasol, you get stuff back. You trade Mike Conley. You get more stuff in return. And then in a season where you get the number 2 pick and then you get Ja Morant and you already have Jaren Jackson Jr., where if he could stop fouling will be a monster impact defensive player. He's like the perfect modern big, a big that could shoot threes, has defensive instincts, can guard 5 positions.
Just can't rebound.
Yeah, just needs to work on his rebounding, and he needs to stop fouling the hell out of everybody. Ja Morant, one of the more young and exciting point guards in the NBA. There is a whole Joel Embiid Rookie of the Year, Zion Williamson Rookie of the Year argument that everybody's somehow flipping around that I won't get into because that's making me annoyed as a Sixer fan. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Brandon Clark, great floater game, very good player, highly efficient scorer, was a nice big off the bench. I know he's a little bit older for a rookie, but for a team that has 2 cornerstones that are not 18 and 19 respectively, having a quote unquote young player like a Brandon Clark who's 22, 23, but you know what he is and he knows his role. I think that's perfect. That's a perfect glove fit for building a young team. And then instead of waiting to or instead of like listening to people and saying, oh, they should buy out Andre Iguodala, they end up getting something in return for him. And I know Justice Winslow needs to stay healthy, and the more I look at it now, that trade is actually kind of weird for the Grizzlies. Yeah. Even though in the end I still like the trade for them, because Justice Winslow, when healthy, I like him as a player. Like, he started playing well in the point guard role last year for Miami. We'll see if his 3-point shooting is still real, but the Grizzlies got another young asset. And so the battle for this 8th seed in the Western Conference is the one thing I'm gonna that I'm kind of sad that I don't get to see how it plays out, because the Sacramento Kings, and I live in Sacramento. I've covered Sacramento Kings games this year. This team was really hoping to make the playoffs, and honestly, by the end of January, that looked like a long shot. It almost looked like if you were in late January and you were recounting like the Kings preseason goals when you go to media day and training camp and they're saying their goals, they wanted to make the playoffs. It was a joke if you just go as far back as late January. Like, those preseason goals were considered lofty and a joke at that point, because they had lost like 10 in a row. They had lost 17. They went through a really bad stretch from late December to the the month of January. And when they put Buddy Hield on the bench and started bringing him off the bench and inserted Bogdanovich in the starting lineup, the Kings started to make a run. And there was a 3-way tie for the 9th spot in the West. The Kings, the Pelicans, and the Blazers, 3.5 games back of the Grizzlies. And they were kind of making a run. And after the trade the Grizzlies did, they were kind of tailing off a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they were 5-5 in their last 10 games. Like, they were slipping a little bit. So I really wanted to see how that played out.
Yeah, no, same here. Like, that's, man, it's frustrating because the Cavs are such a bad team, like, just ineptly run in terms of building, like, a young, promising core. Like, the Grizzlies, like you said, just a cycle back a little bit. Like, the way they did it in such a fast way is just spectacular, and like they're such in a good place going forward in terms of like draft picks as well, just from what they've accumulated over time, and like that's a good start. And then that Western Conference race is super compelling. Like, I would want to say that I think Memphis could still lock it in, but like you said, like they're starting to slouch a little bit after those trades, and like Sacramento was coming, Portland was coming, New Orleans is just a breath of fresh life when you have a freak like Zion Williamson, like, to juice up your roster. Like, that definitely helps as well. Like, that was super compelling and super interesting, and just like on the grander scheme of things as well. Like, I also miss, like, in terms of the playoff racing, like you have.
Are we getting in your second topic?
Yeah, we are. Like, this is a good segue actually. So it's the early beginnings of what felt like a Giannis LeBron rivalry. Like, a lot like how everyone wanted Steph and LeBron to be a thing, and it just. There's a lot of conspiracies like with Nike and Under Armour, and there's a lot of books like Ethan Strauss's new book about the Kevin Durant Warriors is like definitely a fascinating read, and I would recommend anyone who's listening to check it out if you can. There's like the conspiracy that Under Armour or Nike viewed Under Armour as a threat, so to negotiate the bill, this isn't from the book, this is from what I've heard, that to negotiate that lifetime deal for LeBron, like there's a clause that he had to play out part of his time in LA to completely squash the market for Steph. And I think this
Oh, wait, what?
yeah, there's a conspiracy out there that Nike was worried that because they fumbled the pitch with Steph Curry actually to sign him to like a lifetime contract according to Dell, and they apparently used Kevin Durant's presentation and forgot to change the names on the slide, so they all said Kevin instead of Steph.
Yeah, didn't Ethan Strauss do that big story on ESPN about the Under Armour Steph? Yeah.
So like they fumbled that, and then Under Armour gets Steph to be like, other than Cam Newton, to be the face of like major sports for them. And like, I mean, the Steph Curry, like his first shoes are absolutely like a joke. I remember people roasting them so hard because they look like hospital shoes, but that doesn't help itself.
Yeah.
So the grand conspiracy there was Under Armour viewed Steph, or not Under Armour, Nike viewed Steph as a threat because Under Armour was in a really good market in California, like the Bay Area, and like you can really promote his brand from there, and then like that leads to a worldwide brand thing, and you have signature athletes in Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and LeBron for your basketball division. You send LeBron to the West Coast. And here's the other hidden agenda as well, apparently, that Nike planned this. They helped Kevin Durant sign with Golden State to undermine Steph's shoe sales to help firm reacquire the grasp hold of the shoe market on the West Coast. And then you send LeBron there to finish the deal because he's your best shoe guy, and he holds a firm grasp in Los Angeles, and like that's the biggest media market other than New York, which lo and behold, Kyrie and Kevin Durant are at. So that's the grand conspiracy that Nike orchestrated some of these moves that some of their marquee basketball athletes were doing. And that's just the grand conspiracy on a lot of things, that they want control on both the West Coast and the East Coast, and they viewed Steph as a threat. So they sent KD in to undermine him, and then they sent LeBron in to finish the job to reacquire being the shoe king on the West Coast. But to get back what I was saying, the beginnings of the Bucks and Lakers were two of the most fun teams to watch this year. And like LeBron's storyline is compelling because the Lakers didn't make the playoffs last year, and he finally looked banged up and he looked vulnerable and just stepped slow. And like him and Anthony Davis, he's playing with a new life, and like the Lakers in a really good position, at least for the time being, because LeBron giveth and LeBron taketh, and I think the time's coming for the Lakers in the next 2 years or so they maybe not be so happy then, but for now they're pretty good. Like, that's fun. And then like I remember that Bucks Lakers game when Giannis was pretending to put the crown on his head and everything. Like, that's like a compelling rivalry, and I feel like there's actually something here because
Giannis is quickly having a meteoric rise, and he's in his own conference. And from all accounts, from what I've heard and what I've seen, like he's gonna stay in Milwaukee and he's gonna remain loyal to Milwaukee. Like that's a legitimate threat to LeBron's grasp of being the best player in the NBA and being the face of the NBA. And like I think that's a compelling, fun rivalry. And like you have a Bucks Lakers final that you can start hyping up. Like now with the playoffs, they'd be getting close to the second round at this point. Like you start hyping up the possibility of that. Like this is just great for the NBA and it's great for the fans. And like I miss watching good teams play each other, I think is what I'm getting at too, is because I'm subjected to watch the Cavs.
Yeah, there were a lot of good teams this year. There were a lot of good teams this year and a lot of good games this year, man. Like it's funny you're talking about LeBron versus Giannis, because one of my favorite moments from the NBA season, and I love Giannis.
I do too.
I really do love Giannis. He's just such a unique player. I haven't seen, obviously it goes without saying, I haven't seen anything like Giannis, but one of my favorite moments from this season was this recent Bucks Lakers game, and it was in the third quarter. It was Giannis hit a 3 in LeBron's grill. Well, I don't know if it was in LeBron's grill because LeBron kind of sagged off and kind of gave it kind of gave like a half-hearted contest because it's Giannis pulling up. But Giannis still made the 3, and it was still with LeBron defending him. And then the next possession down, the Lakers get the ball. Or this was after Giannis made a 3 after LeBron, the previous possession, posted up Giannis, backed him down like he was a dad backing down his 11-year-old son in the driveway. And Giannis blocked LeBron's shot, but it was a goaltend, a very clear goaltend.
Yeah.
Giannis hits a 3. Lakers get the possession back, and LeBron posts up Giannis on the left block. Everybody's isolated on the other side. The Staples Center PA system starts playing West Side Story by The Game, which is an underrated factoid I don't think anybody talks about when they look at this highlight. But LeBron gets the ball in the post. It's him and Giannis one-on-one. The crowd is like crescendoing and they're like rising up because they like know like these are like the two dudes right here. Like these are the two guys in the league that are on top of each conference, play the same position. One is the previous king, then one is the up and coming, and the crowd's rising up, and LeBron's just sizing up Giannis, and he just takes Giannis right to the basket and puts him in the rim and scores. And the Lakers bench is going nuts, the crowd's going nuts. Mike Breen is losing his mind. He's like he had a really great call on that play. He's just like the two MVP candidates guarding each other, and it's like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And we had so many good games like that this year. Like Pelicans Bucks, not to bring up the Bucks again, but like Zion flying into the rim while Giannis is contesting. That's like watching a damn kaiju film. Like you're just watching two monsters just collide at the rim, and it was just so fun this year. And it ties into my second topic, and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing that our topics kind of tied together, or maybe it's a good thing, but this season from LeBron is my favorite LeBron season of his career.
You are so wrong.
I think
dare you? 2015-16 LeBron was my favorite season.
I know.
And
I know.
I'm talking.
I know. I'm talking to a Cavs fan here, so we might disagree a little bit here. But as a neutral observer and as someone who, I'm not gonna sit here and say like I'm a big LeBron stan. I'm a LeBron fan. I love watching LeBron play. I think he is at worst a top 2 player of all time. All obvious statements. I don't think I'm breaking ground here.
That's okay, man. He's the best player of all time. I get it.
It could honestly, like, for me, it could go either or at this point. Like, I mean, I
get it.
There's no debate. But this is my favorite season from LeBron because it kind of it reminds me of, like, it'd be like if Clint Eastwood or somebody showed up in a new movie where like the up and coming actors are like starring in it, but Clint Eastwood's there and he's just like, oh yeah, well, let me show you young bucks a thing or two about, making a big movie. Like this season from LeBron was like the old dude showing literally everybody in the league. Like,
oh yeah,
when it comes playoff time, like nobody's going to choose any other player but me, which has kind of been my mindset with LeBron these last few years. Cause like, I get the whole LeBron could be MVP every year, but like if you're taking a month or two off from the season, which you can attest to as a Cavs fan, I mean, I think you could even admit like LeBron definitely took stretches of time off when he was on the court playing. And so to me that's a knock against him if you're trying to win a regular season MVP award. But if you're talking about the playoffs, I don't care if it's Kevin Durant, I don't care if it's Kawhi, I don't care if it's Giannis, I don't care if it's let's see who I don't care if it's, you know, Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant teaming up on the Brook. I don't care who it is. I'm taking LeBron James in a single playoff game. If I need to win it all, I'm taking LeBron James until he retires. And just the sheer fact that he could just decide, I'm going to lead the league in assists for the first time in my career. Like that's the other thing that I love about this LeBron season so much. We know he's an all-time great passer, but like his passes this year have just been, I don't know what it is. It's just, it's like he's a golfer that's trying to master like pinpointing shots on the green. It's like, it's really crazy. Like he knows when the help is coming, where the release valves are, or he'll post up on the opposite side of the block and then just fling a one-handed dart to the corner. Like, do you remember when the Lakers played the Nets? It was a pass that was going around on Twitter, but LeBron basically was posting up on the left block. One of the Nets defenders was coming over to help. And before Kentavious Caldwell-Pope relocated to the opposite corner from where LeBron was on the block, LeBron just flings the pass to that corner before KCP is even running to that spot. So by the time KCP comes to the corner, the ball is right there. He could just catch it and shoot it. And he caught it, shot it, made it. And it was so surreal. I was like, this guy is like, he mastered another level of basketball this year. And he might decline a little bit in athleticism. This LeBron James is still a better athlete than 99% of the world. And I don't know, like, he debunked all the stupid narratives that have come with him during his career. One of the ones I hated the most. Oh, he played in the Eastern Conference. It's like, okay, well, if it's so easy, why didn't John Wall do it? Why isn't Giannis going to the finals every year? Why didn't Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan beat LeBron at literally any point in their careers during the playoffs? Like, if it's so easy, why doesn't anybody else do it? And then he comes to the West. Last year, the Lakers were a 4th seed. He gets injured on Christmas Day, and surprise, surprise, the Lakers start playing like crap. The young guys start falling apart, and then LeBron, by the time LeBron comes back, it's too late. And then this year, best record in the West, a conference where he allegedly couldn't win in, even though he has like a 64% winning percentage against Western Conference teams for his career. And then to make it even more hilarious, when it's just Anthony Davis on the court, the Lakers actually, and LeBron is off the court, so lineups where it's just Anthony Davis, the Lakers actually get outscored on a per 100 possession basis. Now, that's not fair. Some of it's not fair to Anthony Davis, just for disclosure, because the Lakers roster construction stinks.
Yeah.
But when it's just LeBron on the court, the Lakers outscore opponents by, I think it was plus 10.7 points per 100 possessions per cleaning the glass or something like that. Like, this LeBron season, to bring it all back for my long-winded expose on why I love this LeBron season so much, like, all this stuff factored in. LeBron has debunked every narrative this year with his dominance in the Western Conference. He is year 17, still 25, 7, and I think it was 10 point something assists, leading the league in assists, best post up season of his career. It's incredible. There's no, I can't go on anymore. Take over for me.
No, you're good, man. Hard to disagree that this is the best LeBron year.
Oh, it's not the best. It's not the best.
Biased.
It's my favorite. It's my personal
Okay, well, I
favorite.
guess
2013
I'm not
LeBron
gonna
was
be.
the best.
I'm not. Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page there. Like, 'cause that's the best LeBron, but like my favorite's still the 2015-16 LeBron, just because what he was able to pull off
Yeah,
and
I was listening to your
what
guys'
became the happiest day of my
I was
life.
listening to your guys' Locked On Cavs episode about the 08-09 LeBron season. That season was incredible too.
Yeah, no, it really
And that
was
was a funny
stupidly efficient.
funny story about that. So, growing up in Bakersfield, California, that's about an hour and a half away from LA. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of Laker fans in Bakersfield, and I knew quite
Yeah.
a bit. And so me and um, my high school buddy is friends with a bunch of Laker fans, and so whenever we'd go watch basketball, we'd go hit up the nearest Mountain Mike's Pizza near our school to watch some hoops. And we watched me, and this was before my high school friend turned on LeBron. He was actually a LeBron fan, but of course his Laker fan friends, they were Kobe guys and they hated LeBron. And so we went to Mountain Mike's to watch game 2 of Magic's Cavs. And when LeBron hit that shot, like, because the entire time, me and my high school friend, we're rooting for LeBron to win because the season's insane. This Cavs team was incredible at home. They were annihilating opponents. LeBron was out of this world that year. How old was he that year? 24?
I think so.
I think it was 24, 25, averaging what he did that year.
It is 24.
What he did that year was insane. So when LeBron hit that shot, me and my friend, we jump up from our table and we like the table kind of tips, so the chairs flew out. We're just like, we're running around Mountain Mike's going, LeBron, the chosen one, and the Laker fans that were there, they would just have their heads down. They're just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, the narrative, Skip Bayless told us the whole time he wasn't clutch and he hit the shot. What? Like, this is so confusing. And we were just freaking out. It was a good, those early, even though we talk about now in retrospect, maybe a little, it's overstated about how bad those Cavs teams were. They were fun teams. I loved watching LeBron in high. That was what was it? The Pistons series where he scored 29 out of the last 30. I was a freshman in high school at that time. Like, that was insane to me as a kid. Like, it was like, because the Pistons had dominated for like most of my middle school, because 03 they win the final, or 04 they beat the Lakers, 05 they lose to the Spurs in the finals, and they just rule the East still after, or I guess the Heat won the next year, but the Pistons made like 5 straight conference finals, like at one point.
Yeah,
and
the Pistons were the beast of the East.
Yeah, the Pistons were the beast of the East before the Celtics, came along.
And the
and
Magic
LeBron
cheated.
LeBron just, he took it to them. It was,
Yeah.
and then I also remember that dunk he had over Rasheed Wallace in Game 5 of that Eastern Conference Finals, where LeBron drove from the right baseline and just or left base. He drove from the left corner and just yacked one all over Rasheed Wallace. It was like a tie game, and LeBron he just yeeted all over Rasheed Wallace there. So that's my that's one of the I'm gonna miss LeBron when he plays, even though I'm not like a super fan. Like, I just, greatness like that, like Kevin O'Connor said, can't take LeBron for granted at this point.
No, not at all. And it's weird to think that, like, in my lifetime I've seen arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, and arguably the greatest football player of all time in Tom Brady, and I've seen arguably the greatest basketball player of my lifetime in LeBron James. And it's just like, how lucky am I as a sports fan just to be able to, well, I hated Tom Brady for the longest time, to be frank, like, absolutely ruined my life, and just got sick of his shit real quick. And I think maybe it's like Stockholm syndrome, where he's abused me so many times that I've come to admire my captor. So no,
I used to hate Tom Brady in high school, but after his 3rd ring, I just gained respect for him. Or after his third ring, I gained respect for him. And then he beat the Seahawks for his 4th ring. And as a 49er fan, I appreciate that a lot. So It's weird. My dad, he loves me, but my dad probably secretly hates me because I've told him on many occasions, on many arguments, that Brady's better than Montana. And of course, as a longtime Niner fan, and Montana was his guy growing up, he just he's not. He still won't have it to this day. I'm just like, Dad, 9 Super Bowls, 6 rings. Like, I know our guy Joe went 4-0, but like 9 Super Bowls,
6 rings,
and 6 rings. Love you, Dad.
Yeah.
So now we get to the part that I have been personally waiting for, because if there is one big reason among many why me and Evan are good friends, is because of our love for our how do we say it? Our common love for things, cartoons,
Yeah.
animation,
Animation.
anime,
The art,
video
the
games,
artistic medium of animation.
the artistic medium of nerd stuff.
There we go. I like
And
it.
so, you know, on his the last few times he's been a guest on my other podcast, we've talked about anime. I love cartoons and anime. Growing up, I loved cartoons in general, even though I can't draw. I always preferred cartoons and animation to comic books, even though I love those too, because I just like seeing drawings come to life. When I like seeing people's imagination on something just come to life on the screen. And that is besides sports, that is the other thing that's always been fascinating to me. For me personally, I prefer cartoons and animation to real life shows, even though I love those too, because I just feel like with drawing, you can do more stuff, creativity wise. And so now we are going to be giving our 5 favorite, not best, because we could surely debate that. We're going to give our 5 favorite animes, our personal favorite 5.
Okay.
And I have to say, before we start, I wrote down, like, I took this seriously. I wanted to, because I also have some friends that I know I'm going to be arguing with after they listen to this podcast too. So I wrote down roughly 20 off the top of my head
goodness.
that I just know that I would consider. But we'll give you the floor first. We'll do it this way. Name me your 5. We'll name me your 5. Give like a short reason on each one why, and then I'll pick, and then I'll respond accordingly, and then I'll do the same. For me, I'll do the same, and then you react, and then we'll converse off of that. Sound good?
Sounds good to me. Okay.
All right. So you go first. Evan's personal favorite anime. Personal 5.
I'll go in reverse order. At 5, I have Pokemon. For those of you who do follow me on Twitter, and I'm sure Jordan knows, like, I'm a big Pokemon guy, and I played a lot of Pokemon Sword when it came out. And, like, shout out to my buddy Ty Windish, and he's a big Pokemon guy too. And like, it's just that.
Yep, shout out him.
Yeah,
big Bucks guy.
Big Bucks guy. But like, the show was my entry point into the games, and then I played the games after that. But like, I was just captivated by it. I think that's also like my entry point, besides Dragon Ball Z, which is also on this list, into anime as a whole. So it holds a near and dear place to my heart. And like, it wasn't something I considered until I like really thought down. I'm like, wait a minute, this show's like got a big part of the reason why I am today. Like, I still make references and homages to shows all the time, or bits from that show all the time. But just to keep this train rolling here, number 5, I have Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, not the original Full Metal Alchemist, because I prefer Brotherhood over the original series, just because it's more closely based on the manga, and it's just, that's another just solid series overall that I adore. And I recently rewatched it, and I think that's why on a second view, or not even my second, this is like my 3rd or 4th time watching through it, but it's so damn good, and it just holds up so well. And like, it's got the good mix, it has a good mix of comedy and dark moments and just like everything else in between. Like, I genuinely enjoy it, but to keep going and something that's a little bit more lighthearted and a little bit more crazy. And I think if you listen to Jordan, I talk about anime in the past, like My Hero Academia, like, it's a recent entry in my terms of viewing, but like, I love it so much.
It's on my list.
It's so good. And It's one of the few times I picked dubs over subs because I really enjoy Chris Sabat as All Might, which
Legend.
legend.
I love Chris Sabat.
So do I. Like, such a good voice actor, so talented, and he like brings All Might to life. And, like, the Japanese voice actor for the show is great. Like, for the entire cast is great as well. But, like, endearing to me and like one of my favorite shows ever. Dragon Ball Z is obviously going to be, I think, on both of our lists at this point. Like, DBZ is such a big show and a big part of my life, and like I said, like Pokemon, it was an entry point to me watching anime, and it's also like an entry point in a manga for me too, because I was curious about Dragon Ball the original, and I really, as a kid, couldn't regularly watch it on TV or anything, so I would check out the manga books from my local library and I would read those in the summer, and like I was captivated by that, and I learned about how the books are usually many episodes ahead of the show, so if you want to catch up on a story, you should just read it before you watch it. And then number one for me, like, I just finished rewatching this maybe a week or two before like we recorded this, but both Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, if you cut out the filler, it holds up so damn well, and like there's so many scenes that still hit hard. And like I was just watching like a lot of it's funny how it started. So I was like watching old fights from the show, and I'm like, God, this hits so hard. Like, I love it. And then I like started back and just started watching the show again, like the entire arc where like they go to the hidden mist village and they fight Haku and they fight Zabuza and stuff, and like absolutely just is so good, and it's such a good series. And Boruto is such a disappointment compared to it, and it just bums me the heck out. But
Every Naruto fan, every friend that I have that's a Naruto fan, they say the same thing about Boruto. They hate it. Like, it's become a lightning rod.
yeah,
Well, I don't even know if it's a lightning rod thing anymore, because lightning rod would involve two sides of an argument. Like, it seems pretty consensus that Boruto is just it's trash.
yeah, no, it absolutely is. It's just, God, it's so frustrating. And I think I talked to a friend about this when we were just like, because he says he still watches Boruto. I'm like, LMFAO, why? And he's like, what do you mean why? I'm like, it's absolute garbage. He's like, give me your thoughts. I'm like, it could have been fine as just like a spin-off movie and saying like, oh, this is where everyone's at like 10, 15 years after the show ended, and they all have kids, and like you can see what they're doing and what they're up to now. And that's what they did. They released a movie, and I'm like, it was okay. It's not exactly what I wanted, but I think that's a satisfactory ending. And then they released a series that just literally they animate episodes of the movie as like an arc of the show, and I'm like, all right, well, fuck you guys. And then there's a bunch of filler, and it annoys me. I have a lot of heated feelings on Boruto. I just don't enjoy it very much.
I haven't watched like Naruto didn't catch my eye when I was growing up, when Naruto was on Toonami. My dad watched it a bit, which was funny enough, but I didn't watch it. But I do know that it's a problem where if your spin-off show, where if the peak episodes of your spin-off show involve characters from the previous show,
Yeah, you're in trouble.
like you're in trouble. And that's kind of the consensus that I got when Naruto and Sasuke came back in that one episode. And everybody's just like, well, this is the best episode ever. It's like, well, what about the other 109 episodes?
Yeah, it's frustrating.
So
what about your list? Yeah, I don't want to be rude here.
We'll go on. Well, so I'll read off my list, and then we can just converse right off of that, because there will be some surprising omissions. I thought really long and hard about this. I tried to go, because there's a lot of modern anime out now, and like with everything, as things evolve, like you could argue a lot of stuff's better, technology's better, how they do stuff, how the process of doing stuff, whether it's making shows, sports, whatever, is better. And so I didn't want to include too many modern shows because they're still relatively new, but there are some that are just so damn good that I can't exclude them from my list. And it sucks because I did grow up on Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and Rurouni Kenshin and, basically any Toonami anime, or anime that was playing on Toonami or Cartoon Network. I grew up on that stuff. And so that's why this list in particular was so hard. Well, I had 3 locks, and then I had 2 spots where I was agonizing over it. And for me, this is in no particular order except for 1 and 2. I have a clear 1 and I have a clear 2. But I'll just start off with this one. So first name I'm reading off my list in no order is Mob Psycho 100. Mob Psycho
Okay.
100 is a newer anime. First season came out in 2016. It's about a middle school kid who has unbelievable psychic powers. Is basically he's basically Saitama in One Punch Man, except it is from an emotional standpoint, from a character building standpoint, from multiple characters in the show, the world that the characters are in. I think this anime blends in everything well that I like in a TV show. And the second season this past year, 2019 was a great year for anime, by the way, which we'll also talk about. But season 2 was freaking awesome. And obviously I would recommend it to you because it is same studio that does My Hero Academia, does Bone Studio. So the animation's great, the story's great, the characters are great, and that's all I really need to do to sell Mob Psycho 100. It's one of the best. Next on my list is another anime from that came out this past year, The Promised Neverland, and it's only 12 episodes. And I'm cheating a little bit because I think if a show spurs you to continue on with the story by going to the source material and binging through that, then I have to put this on my list. Promised Neverland, I binged that in a day or 2 days actually. It's 12 episodes. It's when I recommend the show to people, and when I've recommended the show to people, I told them to go into it blind. And the synopsis of the story is, and my blind summary of the show would basically be kids at an orphanage, and that's it.
It's interesting
Yeah.
enough.
So I watched the first 12 episodes, and like with My Hero Academia, which will be coming up on my list, I immediately went to the manga after I binged the season and caught up on that because it was just so good. Next on my list, Hunter x Hunter. And somehow the only 3 people in the world that I know who hate Hunter x Hunter are listening to this podcast. So that's one anime. I'm going to be arguing about this show for the 550 millionth time. But Hunter x Hunter is great. My preference of shows, well, not preference, but one of the things I like in shows is a depth of characters and a good world. And Hunter x Hunter has both of these. I think the world and the concept of hunters in this show is awesome. I think the characters and the character development through 148 episodes from start to finish is great. I think one of the reasons why I love the Hunter x Hunter world so much is because there are 4 arcs in this show, and they are all completely and distinct different arcs of the show, but they still tie together. And that I love that when a show is able to have the depth of characters that it does, the stories that it does, and the world that it has, and they're able to tie it all in together. And also the main characters of the show sometimes aren't the main characters of the show, which is also something I really appreciate about Hunter x Hunter. And then number 2 on my list used to be my favorite anime. Now it's number 2, My Hero Academia, and used to be. Huh. I will tell you number 1 in a second.
Okay.
My Hero Academia it's one of those, it's right up my alley. I grew up watching Western American superhero cartoons, whether it was Spider-Man, Batman the Animated Series, the old Incredible Hulk that was on Fox Kids, the Fox Kids channel for Saturday morning cartoons. I love Western American superheroes, and the creator of My Hero Academia, Koei Horikoshi, he's clearly influenced by the Western American influence of superheroes. Spider-Man is his favorite superhero, and just his take on the superhero genre and powers and the unique spin on a superhero powered society and the little inner workings and nuances in politics that go on within that. Like, it's still a battle shonen anime to its core, but it seems like they refined the formula to a point where it's unique and different. And out of all the shows I've experienced, like when it comes to like the emotional tones of the show and stuff like that, I don't think a show does it any better than My Hero Academia. There's just, you can attest to this, there's just so many moments where
So
there's just
good.
so many moments, and then the music starts playing, and then the characters start the characters are like going through something or something like that. It's just it hits you on a relatable and emotional level that I don't think any that few shows rarely do. And so
Mm-hmm.
My Hero Academia, and it's again, I mentioned earlier, but My Hero Academia made me read the manga after I finished the first two seasons. This was before season 3 came out. I finished the first two seasons, watched them both in sub and dubbed just because I loved it. And I read the manga, and it was one of those things where I wish I didn't read the manga, but now I'm kind of like, I'm caught up, so there really is no turning back for me. But like, I really wish I hadn't, but it was so good that I couldn't resist.
Mm-hmm.
Season 4. Oh,
Are
sorry, go for
you
it.
are you all caught up on
Oh
the
yeah, I'm
manga?
caught up on the manga. Yeah, I read this
Okay.
I read this
Okay.
past chapter. Too.
Yeah, it's gonna get juicy.
Yeah. We won't. I don't want to go into that because I'm trying to get.
That's
I'm trying to get
spoilers.
some friends to watch it. Although eventually I'm just
Yeah.
gonna start talking about it. But season 4, as a manga reader, season 4 was good. It was slightly disappointing, but I
I
I
don't
still
know,
like.
man. That hideout arc was so good. And my friend who doesn't read the manga and is reading it now said like he's like, why is this one of your I'm like, this is my favorite arc. And he's like, why? I'm like, Lemillion is the best character.
Oh, I love
for like so
I
many
love
reasons.
Lemillion, but I feel like there. So that one episode where he fights Overhaul without his quirk for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I
like
really
thought that was badass.
it was badass, but I felt like the episode did him a disservice because they didn't. I it was the only time I've been disappointed in Bones because as a manga reader, I was so looking forward to that episode, right? And the
Yeah,
fact that it turned
I can agree with
into
that.
it turned into a slideshow at the end instead of them actually animating it. And I know in the manga they didn't animate it, and I'm going really nitty gritty here because I've thought about this for a while, but I know that in the manga they didn't actually show him fighting Overhaul for 5 minutes, but the point of an anime is to animate and go the distance, like, and go beyond, which is what, well, not to no pun intended because that's one of the lines in the show, but Bones usually goes above and beyond to animate this stuff. And that time when they gave Mirio the slideshow after when he was fighting Overhaul, I was just like, man, I can't believe it. And it was weird. I thought it went by a little bit too weirdly enough. I like the second half of the season better than
Yeah,
the
it
Overhaul
did feel
arc, but it
like
felt
rushed.
a bit rushed to me. Like, it was good, but it felt it ended like 2 episodes too early.
Yeah, when Deku did annihilated Overhaul, it didn't really have the punch it had in the manga.
Yeah.
Either, like, no pun intended. But like that attack was awesome. Like the animation and the choreography, the fight and everything was great, but like it didn't hit with me as hard as I'm like, holy cow, he did it. Like I was like, oh yeah, no, maybe it's because I read it, like I knew he was
because
so.
Before season 3 came out, I knew United States of Smash was coming, right? Like I knew that was coming, and season 3 to this day is still my favorite season easily. Like it was amazing. And so going into this season, I was like, Overhaul was my favorite arc in the manga to that point, and like I was hyped for it, and it just didn't hit like I expected it to, like I did with season 3, I guess. And then, but the second half of season 4, I loved the music festival, because I thought that was needed, because that was when we were all like 3 weeks into our isolation here during this pandemic. So that was kind of a needed episode to kind of, drag us out of the malaise and I guess depression of being cooped up in the house. And then, of course, the season finale. I mean, Endeavor, man. Like, Bones went off on that last episode.
Yeah.
Like, it was my favorite episode of the whole show. It's just the season as a whole was disappointing. Still good, but still good. I'm not trying to say like it was bad or anything like that, but I still like the other three seasons better.
No, I agree. And I do, before we go to your number one, I do have like a fear in the back of my mind that apparently the author of the series, I butchered names, so I don't want to like really drop it off without not give him the proper justice he deserves.
I think I know what you're talking about.
He's really bad at world building. Or not really world building. He's really bad at character development. Horikoshi.
You think so?
Yeah, like the characters are super cool, but people are starting to get a little fed up with the fact that this show's been around for so long and they're still not through their first school year.
Yeah.
So either they're gonna have to do a time skip kind of situation.
I'm surprised the time skip. Yeah.
Yeah, so either they're gonna have to have a time skip at some point, but they're really like, it's a slow burn, and like I just hope it doesn't end up like Bleach, where it just takes forever to get to the point that we need to get at, and Bleach still hasn't really figured that out from what I've gathered, because Bleach is my favorite show to dump on because I never watched it. But I had friends who loved it. I just couldn't get into it, and I like said one day, hey, maybe I'll read the manga, and I looked at the chapters, I just like quietly X'd out of my browser and just went on with my day.
I just pictured in your head, you're just looking at it, you're flipping through pages, and you're just like, you close the book quietly and put it down and walk away, or close your tablet and put it down, walk away. Like, I'm good. Number one, my favorite show, and one I've been trying desperately to get you to watch again.
I know what this is. The answer's still no. Go ahead. I know what it is.
Attack on Titan is my favorite anime of all time, and it supplanted My Hero Academia after this past year, where part 2 of the 3rd season came out. This is to me the most let me repeat that again. This anime is to me the most well-written anime ever. The 3rd season has really flipped the story on its head, and as it comes to its conclusion, the 4th and final season, and I think a good show knows when it's time to end a good story early. Sometimes shows can drag on forever, which is what we were just talking about with My Hero Academia, and how that they're facing, trouble possibly with that. It starts off as a show where you think you're fighting a bunch of giant titans and it's cool and all that stuff, and then it just turns into this geopolitical battle, and it's all going to come into a head next season, and how the story, the moments, the battles in this show, and now that we know, well, this 3rd season, you watched the first 10 episodes or something like that, but I'm sure as you were watching it, you were wondering, okay, where did these titans come from, blah 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 blah, and all that stuff. They explain everything in season 3, and it just makes the story so much more infinite. It went from a story of fantasy and battling titans and the mystery of where are these titans coming from, and we get that in season 3, and it just changes the entire trajectory of the show. It jumps from becoming a really cool, interesting anime to just becoming an all-timer for me. So Attack on Titan's number 1 for me.
Okay, well,
I know you don't have a lot to add to it. I know.
Yeah, it's just like cool, but maybe I'll give it another shot with this quarantine shutdown situation. I'm looking for new content to consume, because Westworld is almost over and Lil Dicky's show on FX is almost over, which I really like. So maybe I'll give Attack on Titan another serious crack, and I
really do think this show would be up your alley. I really do. I know I've recommended it to you before, and I know you.
It's been years.
And I know you.
Years.
I know and I know you've stopped on multiple occasions. It seems like you've stopped around episode 10 or
It's just like
around that.
I feel like I'm disappointing you every time. It's like every time I come on and talk to you, like, so man, what do you think of Attack on Titan? I'm like,
Well, now you have time, so
yeah, I guess so.
watch it and just let me know how it is.
Will do.
I feel bad because I have recommended you stuff before that you've liked, and vice versa to me, because you've recommended My Love Story and Gurren Lagann and shows like that, and I've watched it. I've recommended shows to you that you've liked, and I just feel bad that this is the one that I'm just like. But you're probably wondering. There is an omission from this list if you want to get to honorable mentions.
Oh, I have one.
Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball got left off my list. And if it was a top 10 favorite animes, it would be in my top 10 for sure. Absolutely. I wanted to include Dragon Ball in my top 5, but I wanted to cheat and include and just say the whole Dragon Ball series. But that would also include Super. And as much as I love the fan service of Super and the fact that we got Dragon Ball in the 2010 decade and all that stuff, it really is just a mid show if you just take off the fan goggles and just look at it like. I obviously don't have a problem with I love Dragon Ball Super. Whenever like people complain about fan service, I'm the one that's like, serve me the F up. Like, like I love fan service, but if I'm going to include Dragon Ball Super, which is objectively a lesser show and has a lot of low valleys compared to high peaks, and they have some very high peaks, I have to include that into the calculus. I will say, though, if we're talking about greatest anime of all time, and I know people want to be all hipster and be like, I'm not with the mainstream and all that stuff, Dragon Ball is absolutely 100% in the conversation. It's one of the pillars of anime. It's one of the reasons anime is popular in America. It was one of those, anime was so looked down upon if you watched it as a kid in like the early 2000s. The only one any kid would ever talk about and acknowledge was Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. That was the one show everybody universally loved, even though it was like, oh, you're watching, even though you might get made fun of at school if people knew that you like watching cartoons and stuff. It's like, oh, you're watching cartoons, you're watching what's anime? Oh, you're watching Pokemon. But Dragon Ball was the one show everybody was like, this is cool. And that's why, even though like there's better storytelling now and better animation now, Dragon Ball is still holds up. And also when it comes to fighting genres at its peak, even to this day, no show does fighting better than Dragon Ball.
No, it really doesn't. It's like really hype, and like you said, Super is a lot of fan service, which kind of definitely hurts it. Like, you can serve me up as much as you want, but after a while, like, I do get sick of it. Like, I do want something new and like fresh and unique, and I think
because
Dragon
it does
Ball
become
kinda...
the Goku and Vegeta show at that point,
Yeah, which is just basically what the fans want, and like, I don't know. I think I've come to appreciate the movies a lot more. Like,
yep.
Battle of the Gods is such a solid flick. Like, it has just enough for me to be engaged in it after not watching Dragon Ball for a while, and like, I was just like, yeah, no, this is great, and I had a good time. And like, my friend who was a casual Dragon Ball fan watched it. He like went back and actually watched the series. Like, oh no, this was awesome. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is a good launching point to kind of get people reinvested in the entire series. But yeah, no, it's just kind of it has some of the best fight scenes ever. Like, but I mean, like, there's always that go to joke where it takes 5 episodes for them to power up and then they actually fight. Like, that's definitely is a problem where they the build up is
the
a
planets
little bit much
will blow up in 5 minutes. 20 episodes later.
Yeah, so that's 10 hours of footage if you want to do like including commercials, which is just acid 9 and acid 10 and acid 11. But
okay, Stephen A.
Yeah, thank you. I was hoping you'd get that. Yeah, no, it has really good fight scenes, and I don't know. I think it's because when you asked me to do this list to break it down, I was thinking about shows that, like, were just a big part of my childhood too. I think that's what I did it, but like I think your list is perfectly valid too. Like I think that's a solid. I mean, minus Attack on Titan, it's a solid list overall, and like you can really say like these are all modern shows that you can enjoy and watch, and like those are good entry points for people that are anime fans that can say like, what's some good new stuff to check out.
Yeah.
Check out what my dude JC has to say about it. So there you go.
Yeah. You could do the favorites list in any way. Like I did want to go with I did want to be made. I wanted to go with the what influenced me the most route, but then like I thought about it and I was like, there's also, especially in 2019, I don't know how many of the shows from the 2019 anime season that you watched, but there were a lot of good shows, and a good amount of them made this list. Like I have like Vinland Saga with the Amazon Prime anime that's on Amazon Prime right now. That one is one season in, and it's incredible. Same studio that does Attack on Titan. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba was another great one. And another one manga readers really love, apparently. But one season in, it's already one of the more beautifully animated shows ever. That what was another 2019? Promised Neverland, Mobs season 2 of Mob Psycho. 2019 was just freaking stacked. I don't know how much of it you watched.
I'll be honest, not a lot. It was mostly me like revisiting shows that I like. I didn't really, and like My Hero Academia, but like you have recommended a lot of these shows to me, and like maybe it's just me putting things off and like just other things that are consuming my time. But like I'm running out of content to watch. Maybe it's time for me to become a weeaboo again and just re-up my subscriptions and start deep diving into Funimation and Crunchyroll and everything else, and just
shout out to Verve.
Shout out to Verve and coming out as a much more cultured individual on the other side based on your recommendation list. So like. Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. I watched. It doesn't really count, but like Digimon Adventure 2020 is actually kind of fun too. Like I was checking that out. Like, it's a fun soft reboot of the series, and then like the movies and stuff they're doing for that are pretty neat. But no, I'm definitely down to check out what you have to offer in terms of recommendations, because clearly you're a lot more on the game than I am when it comes to watching this stuff, and it's just mostly me like revisiting things I like, and maybe that's just the thing.
Oh,
like, nostalgia is potent right now.
Love
so
the nostalgia. The nostalgia has been it's been very needed in in this time. Like I've been revisiting stuff. It's just that 29. It was just one of those years where like NBA seasons have stacked drafts and stuff like that. Like this was just ridiculously stacked with good shows. So I'll send you a 2019, because 2019 was just so good. I'll just send you the
master list.
I'll just send you a master list of what I've watched from 2019. But
dope.
But yeah, so those were our five favorite favorite animes, or current animes, whatever. Not a best of list, because there's quite frankly there's like thousands of anime out there that I'm just never gonna watch. Like in my Discord, somebody sent me a list of their rankings, and this list had like 500 shows, and I am not that deep into it. Like not that deep into watching that many shows, although I'm not opposed to watching it if there's any recommendations. But he had like a whole master list, and I was just like, my I need to step my game up. Like
I do too.
But one more thing before we go.
Okay.
Since we have a little bit of time, the MJ doc. So The Last Dance. One, it's great that we finally, I guess, have something to look forward to every week. I wanted it all at once after the first 2 episodes, but I think Zach Lowe tweeted it. Like, it's kind of good that we get these weekly, like something to look forward to. What have you thought about it so far? And as a Cavs fan who is obviously tied to LeBron, and we were kind of jokingly going back and forth about who's the greatest player ever. As a LeBron fan, how are you consuming? How have you consumed this doc so far? And just what, I guess, anything new that you learned about Jordan, or something you're, as a LeBron fan, you were like, oh, okay, I'll give it to I'll give it to Jordan fans on this one. Anything of that sort?
Yeah. I mean, people will be quick to point to the fact that LeBron's 3-6 in the finals and Jordan's 6-0, and like I do, like I've talked with Chris about this on my show. I am curious. Like, it does feel like a very LeBron thing to have cameras rolling and like to drop a documentary like this someday. I know they're trying to do something with Kobe Bryant in the future as well. In a similar vein to this, but no, it's just been like super interesting to see like just all the different characters and all the different people that were involved in these 6 title runs, and especially the last one where it kind of felt like it was insurmountable for the Bulls, and actually drew a lot of parallels to the last LeBron year in Cleveland for just a bit, because it just felt like LeBron was dragging this team. He played all 82 games. He dragged them to the NBA Finals, and then JR blundered in Game 1. He punched a dry erase board, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back and ended the Cavs season. Like, I think about that, and I do like. I'm just trolling most of the time when I say LeBron's the greatest player ever. I don't know many people know my firm stance on this. Ever since Kobe Bryant died, I don't really think it's fair. You can say like best player of his era, sure, whatever. Like if you really want to get into that rabbit hole in that debate, like that's fine. But I don't really care like who's the greatest and who isn't the greatest. I'm just going to appreciate the fact that I can watch great players, and the fact that they were able to document this entire last season for the Bulls and just arguably one of the most iconic and greatest players of the 90s, and just like one of the upper echelon players. Like I remember when watching the episodes last night, like one of his biggest obsessions was being held in the same regard as Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and he finally made it when he beat Magic and the Lakers in the finals. Like I get that, like, and that's just the thing. Like he was truly driven to win, and I never really knew that, and I think I was just too young to like really remember and appreciate like how good Michael Jordan was, because I was born in 1993, so this is when the Bulls were in their heyday at that point. So I mean, like, you were the cool kid if you said, yeah, I liked Michael Jordan, the Bulls. I think that was like the easy answer. But like, going back and like watching this, like it's just kind of surreal to see like, yeah, no, the NBA, the way the game is played has changed, but the fact that there's a lot of drama both on and off the floor, that hasn't changed. Like I think it's wild Dennis Rodman was given the okay to take a 48-hour sabbatical, which went way longer in Vegas. Like
he's like, I need a multi-day vacation to Vegas right now, and Phil gave it to him. I was just like, oh my god.
It's just like, yeah, no, exactly. Like I think of how like I could never do that in my job. I can say like, listen, I need 2 days off to just let go, just let my demons just come out and play and like just do whatever I wanted. Like that's why it makes me think of like, again, drawing parallels to like LeBron and the Cavs and MJ and the Bulls. Like J.R. Smith obviously wasn't as big of a problem as Dennis, and maybe problem isn't the right word, but you know what I mean. But
yeah,
like J.R. Smith was kind of viewed in the same regard as Dennis Rodman. Like, I don't know if you can bring this one in, but like they said, like Michael figured it out. Michael made it work, and I've heard from the team, and I've heard from people that are more plugged in with the team, that when the Cavs were trading for Amon Shumpert, which is who they wanted, when they got J.R. Smith, LeBron said, "Bring him here, I'll take care of him." And
yeah,
fit
LeBron
him in.
said, bring him on.
Yeah,
right?
he wanted him here, and he made it work. And then LeBron and JR became thicker than thieves, and I think that's like a lot of it is just one, JR always wanted to play with LeBron, and I think he just looked up to LeBron a lot too, because they were both high school players, and LeBron was like one of the first high school players other than Kevin Garnett to really like make it. So it's just a big deal to him, obviously, and like they were thicker than thieves in Cleveland. And then it's just a weird time. Like there's a lot of parallels you can draw. Maybe time really is a flat circle, but it's just kind of interesting to see that like maybe the drama and that's just kind of the BS that comes with the day-to-day of being a celebrity, like it was different but also the same in the 90s as it is compared to like the 2020s, I guess we're in now, which is weird to think. So
seeing all the given that this was my first year like being in NBA locker rooms and media day and all that stuff, and seeing how everything operates and what questions are asked, seeing the media sessions back then and the type of questions that were asked, I'm just like, oh my God, like nobody would ask this type of question. Like I haven't heard this type of question asked in usually in a in a those scrums or those pregame pressers or whatever, unless someone really wants to ask that question. They usually the questions that I heard in this documentary, like I hardly hear it now. Like just the line of questioning, how the media, the reporter player interaction back then was interesting. My favorite thing in this doc is just looking into the first 4 episodes so far is just looking into the philosophy and the mind of Phil Jackson and just how understanding he was of humans and how each one ticked. Like when Scottie Pippen was obviously protesting the fact that he was the 122nd highest paid player in the league. That's crazy.
I know.
That's so crazy. And they wouldn't renegotiate his contract. Scottie was like, all right, well, I'll just get surgery when the season starts. I'm not going to fuck my summer up, which is a iconic memeable line now. He was basically rehabbing for 2-3 months of the season, and Phil was like, look, I did not hold Scottie's protest against him. I think sometimes people need to take a stand for themselves. And I'm just like, Phil Jackson he got it. Like, and I think his previous stint with the Knicks, that kind of erased those initial memories and thoughts that we had of Phil Jackson, the person and the coach, because now we think about him as the failed Knicks president that publicly threw their best player into trade rumors and all that stuff, and kind of forget what made him tick as a coach. And also the fact that he, would give Rodman a lot of rope, but knowing he would come to the court or come to the game and play his ass off and get his usual rebounds, his defense and all that. And Phil was like, yeah, man, like if you need to let off some steam, you can go to Vegas. And Phil probably knew that Dennis was going to stay in Vegas for more than 48 hours, let's be honest. I mean, Mike certainly knew that too. He was like, are you kidding me? We can't let this guy go to Vegas. We'll never see him again. But just the fact that Phil was that understanding, I just thought that was a really cool side of him that we not rarely got to see, but it was more apparent in this doc. And just also how much Michael and Scottie, even with Dennis's antics, they respected him as a teammate. Like the story of how Dennis, or when Scottie was out and the Bulls were like 8-7 to start the year, and Dennis was having a bad game and Michael was pissed at Dennis, but they didn't say anything to each other. Dennis came to his hotel room later that night, and he just asked for a cigar, and they were just smoking cigars. Cool. Dennis didn't apologize or anything like that. They were just sitting there talking because Dennis knew he effed up. And from that point on, Dennis started playing better, and the Bulls started turning their season around as Scottie was coming back from injury. Just stories like that, and just the behind the scenes stuff. Like even you're 25, 26, I'm 28, and we've probably seen all the Jordan media pieces, the documentaries, the articles, mini like 12-minute segments on NBA TV about the legacy of Jordan, whatever. We knew everything about Michael Jordan. But the cool thing about this documentary is that it's not just about Michael Jordan, it's about the fall of a dynasty, and we're seeing all the behind scenes of the secret tapes that everybody was wondering about finally, which is really cool to me.
No, it's super cool, and it's just, like you said, it's the end of a dynasty and just kind of an end of a chapter in the NBA, because I feel like the NBA was scrambling for a little bit. I mean, San Antonio really filled the void in that regard, for sure, and the Lakers did as well as Shaq and Kobe, so I guess maybe I'm just an idiot for saying this, but, like, for a while, like, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, like, how big Michael Jordan and these Bulls were, like, what was life after that, and clearly the NBA did just fine, but, like, there is a sense of finality to all of this, especially when they show the segment where, like, they were drilling everybody about, like, what Michael's gonna do following the season. Is he gonna retire? Is he not gonna retire? And, like, It's absolutely crazy to me to think that a team was able to somehow properly function and win a championship when the general manager has been on record saying that this is the coach's last year, and like Phil Jackson just didn't say fuck it and phoned it in. Like, that's crazy to me.
And meanwhile, like, this is the last year where Dennis is kind of distancing himself from this team. Scotty is going through his situation. Like, it was, if you think of, like, imagine that season being covered in the social media era right now,
It would be
considering, like,
insane.
considering how the Durant situation was covered last year and all that. Like, this would be like 10 times worse, I feel, because obviously you got Michael Jordan, and then you got Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. Like, that alone in the social media era, like, just
Yeah.
imagine this season being covered during that time. It's really cool to just get a look back at that stuff. But
Yeah, no, it really is.
all right, so we've gone about an hour 45 into this, so I think this is a good place to leave it off. We'll definitely gonna have you back on for sure.
Oh, of course.
So
Happy to be here.
definitely leave some meat on the bone for the next pod. But
There we go.
Evan, thanks again for
Yeah.
coming on and taking time to talk and catch up, and hope you and your family stay safe during this pandemic. Whenever this pandemic ends, hopefully we can all gradually return to normal as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But hopefully you and your family are good and you're staying
Yeah.
safe and everything's
Thank you.
everything's all good.
Yeah, no, thank you. Same to you and your family. I know we were talking about it earlier on, and just however, like, how you guys are doing. Like, just stay safe. Everyone else listening, stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of those who matter most to you. I don't really think there's going to be much of an end in sight, despite what people are hoping for. I think it's, in my personal opinion, I think it's irresponsible if people are going to be opening up full access too early. Like, you need to really walk before you run here. So, yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. It's nice just to have two friends shooting the shit and just talking about what we like to talk about and being the centralized thing of anime and basketball. And it's always fun, and I'm looking forward to being back here again.
Likewise, thank you. Listen to the medical experts, and I can't believe I am saying this in 2020, but don't drink disinfectant.
You really shouldn't.
That was sick. Thanks to Evan for coming on to the show. Thank you for listening to an hour and 45 minutes of us just talking about life, interest, hobbies, and a little bit of basketball mixed in there because it is a basketball podcast. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next video coming out this week. Like, subscribe, follow all my socials. Well, just Twitter and Instagram, really, at SlyHooperX. Check out Evan Dammarell's work at Forbes Sports. You can follow him at amnotevan on Twitter. You can also follow him on Instagram with that same handle. Earlier today or Monday, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, he released his conversation with Cavaliers power forward Kevin Love about a new company he has become an investor in. That was his latest article to Forbes Sports, so check that out. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay tuned for the latest video, and we'll see you next time.